The night the hospital swallowed him whole, Daniel Carter felt time tear open. One moment he was sprinting down a fluorescent hallway with a backpack slipping off one shoulder and panic burning his lungs, and the next he was standing in a room that smelled like antiseptic and quiet endings, staring at a woman whose life was thinning with every shallow breath. Behind him, the squeak of sneakers and the wild laughter of three identical boys echoed like a reminder that chaos and love often arrive together, uninvited and unstoppable. Daniel had chased his triplets through the wrong door, into the wrong room, and into a moment that would quietly rearrange the rest of his life. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the strange ways fate nudges ordinary people into extraordinary paths, take a second right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. This story is for anyone who has ever been broken and brave at the same time. Daniel had learned to move fast ever since his wife, Emily Carter, died 3 years earlier on a rain-soaked highway that never made the news. He moved fast in the mornings to pack lunches before the boys woke up, fast at work so he could leave before sunset, fast through grief because stopping meant drowning. The triplets, Noah, Liam, and Owen, were 5 years old and had the kind of synchronized energy that felt miraculous and merciless. They ran as if the world were a playground and their father was always 5 steps behind, trying not to lose one while grabbing another. On the night everything changed, Daniel had brought them to the hospital because Owen had split his chin open chasing his brothers down the apartment stairs. It was supposed to be a quick visit, a few stitches, a tired joke to distract the boys, and home before bedtime. But children have a way of turning straight lines into spirals, and when a nurse opened a door down the hall, the boys bolted like startled birds, laughing, daring each other to be faster. Daniel ran after them, heart hammering, mind already rehearsing apologies. He burst into a room and froze. The laughter faded as the boys slowed, their curiosity softening into something like awe. The room was dim, machines whispering in a language Daniel didn't understand, and on the bed lay a woman with dark hair spread like ink on the pillow, her skin pale, her eyes open but far away. Her name was Claire Bennett, though Daniel wouldn't learn that until later. In that instant, she looked at him as if she recognized him, as if his intrusion was not a mistake but a message delivered late. Claire had been fighting a losing battle for months, a rare heart condition that medicine could stall but not save. She had learned to measure her days in breaths and her hopes in small, stubborn moments, sunlight through the window, a nurse's gentle hands, the memory of a laugh she used to own. When 3 boys tumbled into her room, their faces flushed with life and noise, something inside her loosened. It was as if the world had cracked open just enough to let joy leak back in. Daniel apologized in a rush, gathered the boys, and backed out, but the look on Claire's face followed him down the hall like a warm hand on his shoulder. Over the next weeks, Daniel found himself thinking about that room more than he wanted to admit. He told himself it was nothing, just the residue of a long day, just the shock of seeing someone so close to the edge. But when Owen's stitches needed checking, Daniel took the longer route, past the dim room, past the quiet machines. He told himself it was coincidence when he saw the same nurse and asked, casually, how the woman in that room was doing. He told himself it meant nothing when he brought the boys along one afternoon with coloring books and left them at the nurse's station while he stood awkwardly in the doorway, unsure why his feet had brought him there. Claire and Daniel began to share time without naming it. He learned her name, her love for old movies, the way she noticed small kindnesses as if collecting them for later. She learned about Emily through the careful way Daniel spoke of her, as if saying her name too loudly might shatter something fragile. The boys learned that Claire liked dinosaurs and that she laughed with her eyes before her mouth followed. In a place designed for endings, something quietly began to grow, fragile and bright. Life, however, did not slow down to make room for hope. Daniel's challenges piled up like unpaid bills and sleepless nights. His job at the auto shop demanded overtime he couldn't afford to refuse. The boys remembered their mother in flashes that knocked the wind out of him, asking questions he didn't know how to answer. And always there was the fear that crept in when he stood by Claire's bed, the knowledge that time was not on their side. He told himself not to lean in, not to hope, not to build castles on sand. But hope has a way of building itself. As winter turned the city gray, Claire's health wavered. There were days she looked stronger, her smile steady, her hands warm. And then there were days when the machines grew louder, when Daniel watched from a chair with the boys asleep against him, feeling the helplessness he thought he had survived with Emily's death return in waves. Yet in those moments, Claire gave him something he had forgotten he needed: permission to live fully even when life was uncertain. She spoke about fear without being ruled by it, about love as something worth the risk, even when it hurt. Spring came, and with it a miracle that felt too big for the room that held it. A new treatment, a risky procedure, a chance that came with no promises but enough hope to try. Daniel watched Claire disappear through swinging doors with a prayer he didn't remember learning rising in his chest. The hours stretched, the boys drawing pictures on the floor, nurses offering soft smiles. When the surgeon finally emerged, exhaustion etched into his face, he nodded once. It wasn't a cure, but it was time. Time to breathe. Time to choose. Recovery was slow, marked by small victories that felt enormous. A walk down the hall. A laugh without coughing. A discharge date circled on a calendar like a holiday. Daniel's life began to reassemble itself around a new axis. The boys started asking when Claire was coming over, whether she liked pancakes, if she would read the dinosaur book again. Daniel found himself smiling without guilt, the heavy coat of grief lifting just enough to let warmth through. A year passed in moments stitched together by courage. Claire moved into a small apartment near the park, then closer still, until her toothbrush lived beside Daniel's sink. The boys grew taller, louder, more sure of the world. Daniel learned to stop running from happiness, to stand still long enough to let it find him. And one quiet afternoon, with sunlight pooling on the living room floor and the boys building a lopsided tower nearby, Daniel realized that love had not replaced what he lost, it had expanded him, made room for more. They married on a clear day that smelled like cut grass and possibility. There was no grand spectacle, just family, friends, and the kind of joy that feels earned. Claire walked toward Daniel with a steadiness that felt like triumph. The boys stood beside him, grinning, their hands tucked into his pockets as if anchoring him to the moment. In a world that had taught him how quickly things could end, Daniel learned how bravely they could begin again. As the years rolled forward, life remained imperfect, as it always does. There were hospital checkups and anxious waits, scraped knees and late-night homework. But there was also laughter that filled the house, resilience that grew stronger with use, and a love that had been forged in a place meant for farewells. Daniel sometimes thought back to that first night, to the wrong room in the right moment, and felt a quiet gratitude for the way chaos had carried him to grace. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that kindness can change a life and that second chances are sometimes hiding behind the wrong door, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps stories like this find the people who need them most. Tell us in the comments what part of this journey stayed with you the longest, and as the screen fades and the music softens, remember this: love does not always arrive on time, but when it does, it makes even the longest wait worth it.